It's the OG weapon type that debuted in the very first game of Meteorot 1. It is WEA00 Beastmaster, the feral weapon of mass destruction, with a kit of Press, Napalm, Hyperbeam, Multi-Legs, and the Trigger Happy leg ability, which buffs all leg stats, minus HP and heavy limit, for every critical hit scored by a shooting-based skills, specifically by the user. So right from start, and pretty much maintaining what he's had from the very early days of Meteorot 1 onwards, Beastmaster's dedicated role is your dedicated shoot nuker. He also is very Metaforce reliant between Press and Hyperbeam, but he can make up for it relatively decently with Napalm for that extra coverage. Press is a gravity-based attribute attack that gets more damage based relative to the number of heavy parts that the target is using. So if you really want to pile on the pain, 2 or more heavy parts is the best recommendation. However, I do also want to touch base on the fact that Press also is the non-pierce damage variant of it. So if you are going to use Beastmaster's head, using it for the essentially for spot punish and spot nuking of anyone on the field that is using 2 or more heavy parts, 3 of course is the greatest and best recommendation if you're going to make use of it. Napalm is a gunpowder based move that is a scattered AoE, so upon use it will damage 1 part on the target normally, and then pick 2 other parts at random, even the same part more than once, at 1/3 of the total damage. So very good for that spread AoE, relatively consistent damage coverage I suppose. Probably not the best there is, but if you are going to use an AoE attack, I would honestly recommend a scattered AoE like Napalm if you are going to make use of one. And of course, Hyperbeam is probably going to be the big ticket item on anyone that is going after Beastmaster, as it is a optic attribute attack that gets pierce damage and ×2 bonus and ×3 bonus damage bonus at 30% and 100% charge respectively. So honestly, right from start, Beastmaster is very tanky. He also is very powerful with an even higher damage potential once he does get that Metaforce sustain and Metaforce charge going. Unfortunately, however, that he does have a couple of very glaring weaknesses that do kind of hurt his overall rating. So as a pure set score, I would rate him a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, he has great power great base power, great damage potential with that Metaforce sustain, but that also does tie into his big glaring weaknesses. First of which is he has no Metaforce sustain naturally. His only non-Metaforce reliant part on his build is Napalm, which I wouldn't actively recommend making use of for that passive build. Even with the Hunter or Sniper nature to maybe comp that, while it is possible to do so, I would not rely on it. The other big weakness that Beastmaster has is that all 3 of his parts are heavy based, meaning if his legs go out, he essentially becomes a sitting duck and slows down to a crawl. So if you are going to use Beastmaster, especially as a pure set, I would actively encourage that you keep those legs protected or alive. Maybe pairing someone off in the team with First Aid or Restore to maybe make sure those legs stay active would be the greatest interest and greatest recommendation if you are going to use him, so he can maintain that speed and the overall advantage as he keeps scoring crits and progressively gets faster and stronger. As a mixed parts score, I would rate him much higher at an 8.5 out of 10. Primarily touching on, again, the high damage potential and the high base damage that Beastmaster has just by himself. Best parts on the build to make use of naturally will be Hyperbeam for that high damage potential for your shoot nukers, and of course the legs for any dedicated shoot nuker that can make use of those extra crits for progressively increased speed over time.